What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kurt's Cocktails. My name is Kurt, and I am a non-bartender teaching other non-bartenders how to pretend to be bartenders. And today, we are delving into the classic of classics, the old-fashioned. So what we're going to do first is we're going to prep our garnish. We're going to do what is called a flamed orange peel. And you want to get this prepped now before you have a drink sitting in ice and diluting over time. So we're gonna take an orange peel. Usually what I would do is cut as much of the pith off as possible, but we actually wanna leave some of the pith on to do a flamed orange peel. It helps add some support. But this was a bit too big of a slice, kind of got some of the fruit on it, so I'm just gonna chop that off. So the old fashioned, why is it called that? Well, back in the early 1800s, that's what the word cocktail referred to, was just a drink that was whiskey, bitters, sugar, and water. It didn't even have ice in it. You couldn't afford ice back in the early 1800s. And then in the 1850s, ice became more available, so they would add ice to those cocktails. They would also add other products that had just been hitting the market, like absinthe and some liqueurs, like Curacao, maraschino. And at that point, they were called improved whiskey cocktails. And then in the mid-1800s, like 1850s, 1860s, celebrity bartenders became a thing. Jerry Thomas hit the scene, released a bartender's guide in 1862, made all these flashy drinks like the Brandy Crusta, the Sherry Cobbler, the Blue Blazer, and cocktail innovation really took off and lasted all the way throughout the end of the 1800s. But throughout all that, you still had some people that just, wanted something basic, wanted what they knew back in the old days. And so what they would do is they would ask for a cocktail made in the old-fashioned way. So what they would do, the bartenders, is that they would make those old cocktails from back in the day, right? With just whiskey or any spirit, really, sugar, water, bitters, and ice, because everyone liked ice nowadays, now that they could afford it. And that was eventually known to be called the old-fashioned. And really, when we make an old-fashioned today, that's kind of the same thing we're doing. There was a little bit of a detour in the mid-20th century where they'd muddle maraschino cherries, like the bright red ice cream kind, and orange slices in it, but we really don't do that anymore nowadays. And you'll see Dexter in a minute. Hey, Dexter, how's it going? But when we make an old-fashioned today, we're really doing that late 1800s formulation. And in fact, the recipe that I'm going to be making today is out of this book, Imbibe, by Dace Wonderich. If you're into cocktail making, I highly recommend that you read it. It's really good, and it has a whole bunch of recipes that were actually released. It reprints recipes from the late 1800s and early 1900s and kind of like annotates them and really translates them to current day measurements. And we're actually going to be using the old-fashioned recipe from 1895. Let me see if I can find it for you. I had the name committed to memory, but not anymore. George Kapler from the Modern American Drinks, 1895. We're going to be using his recipe. So take the jacket off so you can get the full view of the cover. So step number one, we're actually going to be mixing this into the glass we're going to be drinking out of. In this case, it's my Tampa Bay Lightning Rocks glass. The recipe calls for a half teaspoon of sugar. Nothing but that, don't worry. So I'm going to be taking my teaspoon and just eyeballing half. This is Demerara sugar. It has more molasses in it. It's a bit more caramely, more toffee-like. Kind of adds a little more flavor to what we're looking for. And then it calls for a teaspoon of water. Hold on just 1 second. I'm actually going to add soda water to this. It's not going to make it fizzy, but why not, right? So a full teaspoon of water, half teaspoon of sugar, and then calls for 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. Angostura is the OG bitters, the most famous type of bitters there are. However, 1, 2, that's a little more than 2 because it drips. However, this is up to you. This is great personalization. There's hundreds of thousands of types of bitters on the market today, different flavors. So just do whatever you like, Calls to muddle it up, break the sugar apart. So that's what we're gonna do. Don't go crazy trying to really dissolve the sugar, because getting some undissolved sugar is not that bad. It'll actually trigger some dopamine releases, and you'll actually feel really good. So don't really worry about getting all the sugar dissolved. That's good enough. Then it calls for a wine glass of whiskey. A wine glass back then was 2 ounces. Actually, I don't think that recipe called it a wine glass. I think they stopped calling it a wine glass back by 1895. But back in Jerry Thomas's days, a wine glass was 2 ounces. And that's what they would use. So 2 ounces of whiskey. Now again, an old fashioned is really whatever you want. Doesn't have to be rye, doesn't have to be bourbon, doesn't have to be whiskey. It could be gin, it could be tequila, it could be rum, it could be anything you want. I am using this Wild Turkey 101 bourbon. It's really good. It is really strong because it's the 101 refers to the proof, so it's 50% alcohol. So this is going to be a strong, strong old fashioned. Now it says mix it with some ice, so I'm going to be getting some ice, and I'll be right back. So the ice that we're going to be using is this clear ice sphere that I have made. So that's going to be the central ice that's going to be in our drink. However, to aid with dilution, because large surface area doesn't dilute that easily, so we're not going to get much dilution out of this, which is kind of what you want at this point in the stage. So I'm going to crack 2 more ice cubes, small ones. Add those into the drink. One more crack. And then we're just going to work on stirring this around for a little bit and get some dilution going, some chill. You want to wait for the glass to get cold. And then when you start really feeling some cold come through the glass is when you want to start tasting it. Kind of lift it up, see what I'm doing there. And give this a taste. I'm just gonna drink this, so I can do from the bar spoon, but a little bit more. But if you're making this for somebody else, don't drink out of the bar spoon. All right. I'll take that. Clear some stuff out of the way. I'm gonna move this closer because now I'm gonna do the garnish. So first of all, I'm gonna get one more thing. We're gonna add a Luxardo cherry at the end of this, but right now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a flamed orange peel. Now, again, we want some pith on the back of it so that it gives some support so you can really get that flame on. The orange has to be just right, so we'll see if this one is. You want something that's waxy and you want something that's not overripe. The more ridgy it is, the more ridges it is, the more likely you'll get a good flame out of it. If you use something that's super smooth, it means it's overripe, not many oils in it. We're gonna do this with a match. Don't do this with a lighter. If you do it with a lighter, butane's gonna go in your drink. You do not want that. We also want the match to burn for a few seconds so that there's no sulfur left when it spritz, because you don't want sulfur into the drink. So, and this does take practice. And don't do what I'm doing, which is doing this on a plywood countertop. Right now we're redoing our kitchen, but this is important. You gotta learn how to do this. So this is what we're gonna do. All right, so strike the match. Let it burn for a few seconds. That's fine. Flame the orange, heat it up a little bit. 45 degrees over the drink, and let's try that one more time. Let's actually get a different orange peel out, a fresh slice. All right, got a nice little pithy piece of orange. Let's try this one more time. This is always my luck, actually. It's always the second match that I do it well. So, burn for a few seconds, get the sulfur out, heat the orange slice up over the drink, and there we go. We got something. So what's actually that's going to do, it's not just for visual effect. Those oils get caramelized when they hit through the, go through the flame, and it actually really helps out the cocktail well, especially if it's bourbon. Last touch, this is not ice cream cherries, these are Luxardo cherries. So these will go really well with the old fashioned. Just plop that in there. And there you have it, the old fashioned. Cheers. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I like bourbon old fashions better. The orange, you can taste the orange oils in there. You can taste the orange around the glass too. These really go well together. This is one of my favorite drinks, actually. There's still some ice from the dilution cubes that I cracked. The sphere is still there. Little trick, this is a personal preference thing, but with regards to whiskey old fashions, a lot of people tend to think that orange peels go better with bourbon, whereas lemon peels go better with rye. And that's something that I've just been going with. Bourbon is sweeter than rye. Rye is a bit more spicier, so it kind of matches, kind of makes sense. But yeah, again, the best thing about old fashions is that you can personalize them. So this is just a standard recipe, a standard formula. Use what spirits you want, use what bitters you want, experiment. You know, add some liqueurs to sweeten stuff up. Coffee old fashions are awesome. It's half bourbon, half coffee liqueur with orange bitters instead of Angostura. A lot of different things you can do. So don't make old fashions, but also personalize them and make them how you want them. So until next time, I'm going to finish this and then I'll catch you at the next one. Cheers. Bye.